This is the most important test of the year. It's one last shot for everyone to iron out the kinks, but nobody's breezing through this test. Preseason Thunder, letting it ride right now in Vegas.
It's the test out west. This wild weather day will tell us a lot about the upcoming season. About 1/3 of the season's races will be run on similar racetracks, so the data gathered here today and tomorrow is absolutely vital. Hello, everybody. From Las Vegas, I'm John Roberts alongside of Larry McReynolds. As Preseason Thunder rolls on, you know, it was our original intention to do this show from the Neon Garage, but 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts, Larry Mack, have brought us inside.
It was brutal. If we had done this show outside as planned, move over Dave Despain, we would have been the new wind tunnel show, trust me.
And we may have ended up laying on the ground after the time the whole thing was done. Let's take you back to the morning when the wind didn't really bother the race car drivers that much. These 3,400-pound stock cars weren't affected that much, and Denny Hamlin was fastest overall in his Toyota.
Right out of the box, Toyota strong just like at Daytona. But remember, this session is almost all the teams, almost 50 teams were at Daytona. They were split up between the two sessions.
Trouble early on in this session for Regan Smith in the 01.
Yeah, this happened just 30 minutes after the track opened for practice. I talked to Regan. He said, Larry, I was all the way up off the corner on the back straightaway off turn 2, and the car just came around me, took it to the garage area. Fortunately, almost all the teams had 2 cars here testing.
Now, Regan's teammate Mark Martin was a guy we didn't hear a lot from in Daytona. He was pretty quiet there, but he was 6th fastest this morning.
And I talked to Mark this morning. He's so pumped up about this new season, and his schedule this year will be almost just like last year. He will run the first 4 races and then skip Bristol.
Now, here's the times, Larry, and as we see, we got all the manufacturers well represented, and again, we have Toyotas up top on the speed chart.
And we had a lot of different agendas going on here all day long. Some guys were working on qualifying runs, some guys working on race runs. I talked to Elliott Sadler, so happy with the way that Dodge of his is driving.
11 through 20 features Tony Stewart, Martin Truex Jr., and Jimmy Johnson, a guy who gets around this racetrack very well, Larry Mack. Let's hear from some of the other fast guys.
It's been pretty good so far. Usually here at Vegas, with the tire compound and the race surface, it's hard for me to kind of get up to speed. But the track's aged nicely, and Goodyear's came with a little bit better tire than what we had last year, and I think it's going to make really for more competitive racing. So far, it's definitely been good on our side.
It went pretty well. I'm pretty happy with it. It's don't want to draw too many conclusions for the first morning of a long year, but so far things have gone real well.
You know, we were top 5 right off the truck, and that says a lot for Greg Irwin and all the guys back at the shop that we started the season off like we ended at Phoenix and Dover. So excited about that, not excited about this weather, want to get back at it and try and make it faster.
So you can see there how quickly times can fluctuate on the speed chart. Greg was 5th fastest at the time we talked to him. By the time the day was over, he was well down on the speed chart. Not well down, but down on the speed chart in the 18th spot. Let's take a look at the afternoon highlights, and a lot of wrecking going on, Larry, as the afternoon came around.
Well, it's like they were a little timid in the morning, a little shy with this car here, coming here to Las Vegas for the first time. But Sam Hornish Jr., this was right after the rain break, right after the lunch break, hardened the outside wall. But again, a lot like Regan Smith, this team, they have a second car here.
And if you notice a theme going on here, the open wheel drivers, Jacques Villeneuve, Dario Franchitti, also involved in afternoon accidents.
Jacques was one of the more luckier ones because that's all the damage he got. All he'll have to do is put 4 more Goodyear tires on.
Hardest hit of the day was David Reagan in the number 6. Fortunately, David is okay.
But the trouble spot seems to be coming off turn 2 as the car goes up against the wall on the back straightaway. And yeah, definitely the most heavily damaged car of the day.
Now, Larry, you would think that this kind of wind gust that we saw today, 60-plus miles per hour, would affect these race cars. We walked up and down the garage area, and everybody said, no big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I was even a little reluctant as I drove in here this morning. I went, gosh, I mean, this is going to be huge. But you know, JR, you and I were talking earlier, the only time I'm ever really concerned about wind is maybe when we go to Daytona, Talladega, maybe Michigan or Fontana. The stock car guys, they had no complaints. I talked to Elliott Sadler. He said maybe it affects me just a little bit getting into turn 3, and I can feel the push down the back straightaway, but I do definitely definitely think, and I think Bob Dillner will talk about this, that the open wheel guys were definitely feeling the wind move their car around.
Now, if you look at the top 10 for the morning session, you see all three Richard Childress Racing cars in that top 10. They look strong, and they got Mr. Childress very happy right now.
And you know, they were not that happy after Daytona, but they came out of the box strong here. And I talked to Richard this morning. All three of his cars were right up there, and I said, how's things going? He said, we know we have got to beat the Hendrick cars. And I said, you know what, Richard, they can be beat. And he said, you know what, Larry? They will be beat, so that group is definitely on a mission.
Hey, that is confidence for you coming from RCR, and they have the numbers to back it up so far. Folks, we've got a big show for you coming up on Preseason Thunder. Still a lot to come from here in Vegas, so stick around.
Stick around. We'll check in with Bob Dillner, who's been working the garage to get the latest on who's in good shape. And later, NASCAR drivers place 1, 2, 3 at the Rolex 24. So who's feeling good and who's feeling bad today? Preseason Thunder is back in a moment.
Wow, the bloodlines are unmistakable. The new Cayenne GTS. Porsche, there is no substitute.
Like zoinks, it's the cable guy.
Well, now that DirecTV has way more HD channels than cable, he had to try to stop everyone from switching to DirecTV.
Get over 90 of the best channels in HD now on DirecTV.
What's going on?
Me and my bro Spicy Chicken Crisp are just, entertaining.
Spicy! She was hitting on me.
The Spicy Chicken Crisp for $1, heating up the BK value menu.
There are places out there where the soul of NASCAR burns bright. Tracks that fans and drivers call home.
Running under the lights, the local short track. That feels like home.
Your local track is where you learn to race. That makes it home to me.
I'm always at home on Midwest dirt.
This is NASCAR Local Racing.
Come here a driver,
but you leave a racer.
Visit NASCAR.com and click on NASCAR Local Racing to find the home track near you.
This is the soul of NASCAR.
NASCAR Preseason Thunder is brought to you by DirecTV. Now get over 85 of the best channels in HD and more coming throughout the year.
Welcome back, everyone, to Las Vegas. This first non-restrictor plate test of the season is so big because there is so much to learn with this new car and so little time to do it in. But as Bob Dillner tells us, some of the teams are even blaming these windy conditions on a kid from Vegas.
I'm not responsible for the weather, man. This is horrible. It's never been this windy out here for a test, and the rain showers just came through, so it's miserable.
Yeah, I did 4 laps and already went, oh. So it's okay.
It's blowing hard out there. It's like being out in New Jersey on clam boats or something. I don't know. It's crazy.
All joking aside, the wind gusts today reached nearly 60 miles per hour at times. But depending on whom you spoke with, it did or didn't affect today's session.
Oddly enough, right now, Jimmy says he hasn't felt a whole lot of wind inside the race car, which I'm kind of shocked at. So we're just going to have to kind of wait and see. He's also used to that Daytona prototype car, so he's got to probably get acclimated to these cars again. They'll be able to fine-tune a little bit. But it's real windy. You know, you're gaining a lot of straightaway speed down the back straightaway, and you're definitely adding a lot of downforce to the front of the car going into turn 1. So it will affect the car, but fortunately enough, tomorrow it's going to be a little bit nicer.
Running in this wind is incredible. Just these cars are so sensitive to the wind, and you know, one lap the car feels good, the next lap it'll get loose in a corner or it'll push it. Yeah, it all adds to the learning experience.
You feel the wind a little bit, not as drastic as you do here in the garage. I think you got a lot of trucks and trailers in the garage, and the wind shifts a lot of direction. And it's not as bad on the racetrack. You can feel it a little bit, but just makes it inconsistent. You know, some laps it feels like it's really loose getting into the corner, and then some laps it's good, but it's tied off. So it's really tough for me to judge right now the direction we need to go.
The windy conditions claimed its first victim early when the 0-1 of Regan Smith crunched the wall.
Just lost it. Just came off of turn 2 there, and I've been a little snug the whole time, and just got up off the corner and almost onto the straightaway, and it turned sideways on me, and I overcorrected, sent it back in the wall. So it is gusty. I'm not gonna use that as an excuse. I'd like to, but you know, it happens. They're race cars, and we make mistakes occasionally, and just pretty embarrassed it happened that early in the day.
And Bob Dillner now joins us from Vegas. And Bob, we say it so many times throughout this half hour, we're going to say it again. This is an absolutely huge test because it's this new car on a racetrack where we're going to see a lot of this kind of racing throughout the season.
Exactly, and Johnny, and today these teams learned a lot. They learned that they have a lot more to learn about this particular race car, the brand new race car being implemented this year full-time in Sprint Cup racing. And you take a look at Kurt Busch here today. He came with what he thought was a pretty good setup, the setup that they used at Atlanta at the COT test at the end of last year. Well, you know what? That didn't work. They used another setup that they thought would work on a 1.5 mile track. That didn't work either. Right now, Kurt Busch and the boys not very happy with that Miller Lite Dodge. And Kurt was telling me he thinks this is going to be a deal where each track this year, they're going to have an individual setup for each 1.5 mile racetrack.
Yeah, Bob, what about Dario Franchitti? What do you think he learned today?
Well, Dario Franchitti learned a lot here today. Of course, he hit the wall, destroyed a race car, and he said, you know what, the wind really got to me. But it was really interesting. Larry Mack kind of talked about it a little while ago. The stock car guys really not feeling the wind all too much. But Dario Franchitti said, hey, these cars are so sensitive to the wind around this racetrack. Remember, 60-mile-per-hour wind gust here today. So interesting to see the stock car guys versus the open-wheel guys' perspective.
Yeah, it didn't affect the stock car guys much, but it sure affected our show as we brought it inside here to the Media Center instead of the Neon Garage. We hope to be back out there tomorrow. Bob, thanks a lot. We'll hear from you in just a moment. But right now, stay with us, everyone. There is much more to come on Preseason Thunder.
Coming up on Preseason Thunder, last year he was one of the highest finishing Ford drivers in the chase, but will Matt Kenseth get to 17 back in championship form this year? And just how tired are the guys who ran the Rolex 24? The answer is coming up.
The Daytona 500. It's the greatest story in racing, told in 200-lap chapters each February. Its cast of characters includes a Wonder Boy and the man himself. It's a story about underdogs, royalty, and family. Most of all, it's about knowing that should you be there, you'll be part of racing's greatest story forever. To guarantee your seats to the 50th running of the Daytona 500, call 1-800-PIT-SHOP or visit...
This Valentine's Day, some hearts will soar, some will be broken, and drivers will do whatever it takes to make the Daytona 500. The Gatorade Duel at Daytona on Speed, February 14th at 2 p.m. Eastern. We've got your Valentine's date right here. NASCAR on Speed, be there. Well, a little over 24 hours ago, Daytona was the scene of the twice-around-the-clock endurance race known as the Rolex 24. Now, NASCAR drivers were well represented in the final standings. Now, it used to be that the Rolex drivers came over to the Daytona 500 years ago to help them out. These days, it is the NASCAR drivers that go over and help fill the field up at the Rolex 24. Now, at the start of the race, A.J. Allmendinger, former open-wheel standout, was on outside pole, representing the NASCAR drivers well. He would lead the race. Jimmy Johnson eventually would bring the number 99 home in second. Kurt Busch, another NASCAR racing guy, he and his Penske teammates finished third. The winners, though, Dario Franchitti, Juan Pablo Montoya, and the rest of the Chip Ganassi racing bunch, they get the big watches and bring home the gold from Daytona.
It was incredible. You know, working with Roger, we didn't know what to expect, except he likes to run hard and he likes to run fast. And so, my first drive, I was at night in the rain. I didn't know what I was doing, just along for the ride. And then the 24 hours, it went really smooth for us. Built to about 4 in the morning, and we had some overheating troubles from then until the end of the day.
Completely wore out, you know. It's like, I even told my guys this week, is, you know, I woke up at 5:30 this morning because, you know, my timing is completely off. You know, I was sleeping 2 hours, waking up, sleeping 2 hours, waking up, and now it's like you don't even know what to do.
I know why guys like Tony Stewart have given the Rolex 24 a miss this year. It's pretty grueling, but the team were nice enough. They said, look, just come in when you feel like it in the morning. We'll start. The result of that is we've only done 10 laps before the rain came, but just starting to get comfortable in the COT here at Vegas. My first time here, and the schedule has been crazy right now.
It was pretty busy. Unfortunately, it wasn't as busy as I was hoping, because I was hoping we'd be in victory lane. I'd smell like champagne and all that, but no, it's part of the schedule, and you know, I'm not big money yet to where I got my own jet, just flying wherever I can. So I had to get on and get on the regular plane and fly with everyone else.
Now, one of the complaints we heard from crews down at the Daytona test was the fact that NASCAR had them in a box that was so small, there wasn't really much they could do with their cars of tomorrow. But now that we're here on the 1.5-mile track at Las Vegas, the crews have just a little bit more to work with. Larry McReynolds has more in tonight's Tech Talk.
If you go back to the Daytona test a couple of weeks ago, I did a tech talk talking about the small group of things that teams had to work with down there. We always use the phrase, when you get there, you've kind of got what you've got. Well, today's tech talk here at Las Vegas Motor Speedway's test, headed to Fontana at the end of the week, is talking about how much that box opens up for teams to work with. A lot may be in the rear wing area. At Daytona, locked in, everybody 10 degrees. Here you can move this wing up to 16 degrees. Little smaller gurney lip than we raced at Daytona, but the big part about the wing you can work with is the end plates. Here you can run with or without gurney lips on the inside or the outside. You can run the curved end plate or the flat end plate. At Daytona, had to be the flat end plate with no gurney lip. But the other things they'll really be working with here is in the rear of the car, chassis-wise. You can work with rear shocks. At Daytona, every team qualifies and races the same rear shock package. And the other thing they'll be slinging a lot of at both of these tests this week will be the rear springs. At Daytona, everyone was locked into 500-pound rear springs. So the moral of the story is, a crew chief, you come here, unlike Daytona, feel like you control a lot more of your destiny than you did there. And you can start off and maybe not be very good, work your car by the end of the test to here to be real good, or maybe like Hammond used to do, start off really good and work it down to here.
And Larry McReynolds joins us back once again here in the Media Center.
And I was just kidding about Jeff Hammond. Jeff Hammond made race cars fast almost everywhere he went his entire career.
Yeah, well, these guys want to go fast out here right now, Larry, and they got just a little bit more to work with than they have in previous test sessions.
But, JR, talking to some crew chiefs and talking to some drivers, I think they were just a little bit surprised when they got here, because the nature of this car tomorrow was not turning. The balance of the car has not been where it needs to be. It never had enough front downforce. But almost all the teams when they got here, their cars were turning too good. They were almost loose, so they definitely had to go to work, tighten the cars up. And I think so much of this comes from all of the information that they learned last year, racing it 16 times, plus the smartest minds in all of motorsports working all winter long to make these cars turn.
Yeah, you got that exactly right. Now, Larry, for these guys coming down to this test, what they have to do not only is try to look what they can do with this car tomorrow, but also we said earlier in the show that the numbers say 1/3 of the racetracks we go to are 1.5-mile racetracks. They're similar, and we stress similar.
But different. Yeah. We have a lot of 1.5 mile racetracks, but when you take Las Vegas Motor Speedway, it's 1.5 miles with not a lot of banking, but it has that progressive banking, a lot like Homestead Miami Speedway. We go to Fontana the end of this week. It's a fairly flat 2-mile racetrack. So, yeah, aero-wise, they're going to be the same, but definitely like Bob Dillon was talking about, they're going to have to fine-tune with the chassis setup.
And the guys who fine-tune the best are going to be the ones that come out on top.
And the cream will rise to the top.
As it always does. Well, folks, stick with us. We still have so much more coming your way from Preseason Thunder in Las Vegas.
At 4:45 this afternoon, NASCAR issued a statement saying that Chad Canals, Jimmy Johnson's crew chief, has been ejected from any further participation in the 2006 Daytona 500.
But you'll see a lot of mirror driving right now, especially on that 48 car. He's going to be looking out the back of that car as much as the front. He has to, because if they get beside him, it's over for him.
Here goes Ryan Newman. He's going to try the high side. Which way will mirrors go? Oh, Holmes, this 12 car, Ryan Newman.
Keep pedaling it, man. Keep pedaling.
That's
clear by 4.
That's it. Crash behind him. Crash behind him. The caution is out. The race is over. Jimmy Johnson has won the Daytona 500.
You are my hero.
His car owner watching here at the track and his crew chief watching at home. Jimmy Johnson wins his first Daytona 500 victory.
Unbelievable, guys. Unbelievable.
I have overwhelming urges to compete.
I own you.
There are a lot of guys just like me. Now there's a cure.
All right, let's race. They lose this race, they lose their ride.
Pigs premieres February 20th, 9 Eastern, 10 Pacific, part of Premiere Week on Speed.
As a pilot,
Dave Grady has done the walk-around hundreds of times. But this one might have saved his most precious cargo.
If you add weight to your car, don't take off until your tires are properly inflated.
Mario Andretti and Firestone remind you.
Check your tires.
Hi, I'm Paul. I'm an insurance customer. I never knew auto insurance could make me feel
so animated.
With electronic documents and automatic renewal, eSurance makes it easy to take care of my auto insurance, so I don't have to think about it. Because there's no paperwork, eSurance customers have saved thousands of trees.
And you've also helped plant over 20,000 more.
I can really save some green with eSurance. Now that's something to get animated about.
Take a fresh look at your auto insurance. Get your quote from eSurance today.
Welcome back, everyone, to Preseason Thunder. No matter how quietly he went about doing it, Matt Kenseth has always been a championship contender. He won the last ever Winston Cup, and he's a serious threat for the first ever Sprint Cup. Here's Bob Dillner and Matt.
It's windy, it's rainy here in Vegas, but this was the test that everybody was looking forward to, or this test in California. So Matt Kenseth with us, and he's always good at the California Speedway, but why are this week's tests so crucial for your guys, and what are you looking to learn, Matt?
Well, it's just the first time we've had the current car now on the mile-and-a-half tracks, basically, so it kind of gives you a jump for the season. You get to some intermediate tracks, and like here in California, kind of represent what we do, you know, most of the year. So just kind of get here and see what the stuff runs like that we built this winter.
You know, you go to Daytona and there's only so much you can do with the small box that NASCAR gives you with these COT machines, but here you get to play with more things, springs, shocks, and so forth. So is it more about the balance of the race car?
Yeah, same as it's always been. It's about getting the car balanced and getting it through the corner as fast as you can. So that part hasn't changed. You know, the cars are definitely different. There's less things we can work on in this car than we could, you know, maybe on our other car. But you really, the areas we can work on are very important, and you got to really fine tune them. And they seem kind of sensitive. So so far they drive really good here, and you know, I'm looking forward to it.
What are the positives and maybe negatives? We're out here, out west this week, testing here a mile-and-a-half track, going 2 mile California track. Is there any detriment or any positives to testing both tracks in 1 week, Matt?
Well, it's okay. I mean, we're already out here, and it's a close trip to go to California. I don't think that what we learn here and what we learn in California is going to be greatly different. So, you know, doing both right in a row, it makes sense, you know, logistically to do it. But, you know, I'd almost rather do 2 days here and then, you know, a month from now do 2 days maybe at a different track. But it's okay. I don't think there's any real negatives. I think we're all learning a lot, trying to get ready for the season and try to make sure we put on a good race out here.
And, of course, when we go to California later on this week, that's the race he'll be preparing for, and he's the defending winner of that race.
So, can Matt Kenseth better his 2007 season? No championship, but decent numbers. 2 wins at California and Homestead, 13 top 5s, and an impressive 97.4 percentage of the laps run completed. Still, with the Hendrick cars out there, it was only good enough for 4th in the championship. Stick around, folks. Lots more from Las Vegas coming up.
NASCAR Preseason Thunder is brought to you by DirecTV. Now get over 85 of the best channels in HD and more coming throughout the year.
The Atlanta Motor Speedway.
The green flag is waving.
For 5 decades, Atlanta has been home to NASCAR's greatest stars and their greatest moments.
Alan Kulwicki is the champion.
March 7th, 8th, and 9th, Atlanta will write its next great story and create another unforgettable memory.
Gordon got loose in Torben. What a finish!
To be a part of that memory, call the Atlanta Motor Speedway ticket office. Visit atlantamotorspeedway.com or contact Ticketmaster. Atlanta Motor Speedway. Real racing, real history, real fast.
Like zoinks, it's the cable guy.
Chinkies? Well, now that DirecTV has way more HD channels than cable, it's no wonder the cable guy tried to stop everyone from switching to DirecTV.
And I could have got away with it if it wasn't for you meddling kids and your dog.
Scooby-Doo!
Hook up your new flat screen to over 90 of the best HD channels. Call 1-800-DIRECTV.
Hey, you. Are you into die-cast models?
Kind of mini on Monday. But today, the test continues. The times show the Toyotas are strong, but is everybody working on the same thing? This is day 2 from the desert. NASCAR Preseason Thunder starts right now.
Greetings from Las Vegas, where most people come to play, but those who compete in NASCAR's Top Series were hard at work on this very fast track in the West as Preseason Thunder rolls on. Hello, everybody. I'm John Roberts alongside of Larry McReynolds in the Neon Garage. And Larry Mack, nothing says Vegas quite like Neon. And this is a great place to come if you want to watch a race and watch how these teams work. You can see it all right here in the Neon Garage.
It is so fan-friendly, and I'm glad we're in the Neon Garage, and we're going to give the wind tunnel assignment back to Dave Despain because the wind definitely dissipated, but it got very cold here today.
Definitely a chilly day in Vegas today, but let's take you back to yesterday and take a look at an amazing amount of cars that got banged up on this course yesterday, Larry.
Yeah, we've had a couple today, but this was yesterday. Sam Hornish getting initiated here at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. This was just shortly after lunch, and Jacques Villeneuve, one of the luckier ones, spun out but didn't hit anything.
David Reagan also had a very tough hit on the backstretch. You see the damage on the right side of that race car, and it was a result of, again, a very hard hit. Just lost control. Dario Franchitti, and here goes Regan Smith around.
Yeah, this was only 30 minutes into the practice session yesterday morning, and how about this one? Bob Dillner talked about this yesterday on our show. This was a wreck by Mark Martin, but not on the racetrack, in the garage area against fire plug poles.
Now, that was yesterday. Let's move on to today, Larry, and take a look at some of the faster guys out on the racetrack, and this time it was a Roush Ford driven by Carl Edwards.
And when you look at the Roush Fenway group, especially the 99, they started getting their arms around this car tomorrow, the end of 2007. Actually, in the early part of the morning session, they had 3 cars up there in the top 5.
And we still find ourselves talking about these Toyotas. This time, David Rudiman second fastest in the 00.
And he was the fastest Toyota and had 2 cars in the top 11. So it looks like David Rudiman, Ryan Pemberton, they're starting to gel here early, even before the season starts.
Tough break for Jeff Burton. Was so happy with this 31 car until that happened.
Until this happened about midway through the morning. I think they were trying some things that just didn't quite work out.
Let's hear from the fast guys.
It's going good. I mean, just going through a whole list of different things that they want to try, and when you find something that works, you kind of keep going back to it and doing different things and massaging that. But overall, it's been pretty productive. I mean, between all the cars, we found some stuff that works and what doesn't work.
So far, I'm really happy. I mean, we just continue to make progress and just getting to know these guys a little bit better on the 5 team. And so far, things are going well. We just continue to get faster and just learn more about this new car. And obviously running on the bigger tracks this year, we got a lot of stuff to learn. And they've done a lot of good homework, too. I mean, on the 7-post, getting us to start, where we're at now, and the Kellogg's CarQuest Chevrolet's running good.
It's gone real well so far, and we've just been able to work on the balance, trying to get the car to turn a little bit better, and yet keep the back underneath it and not get too loose. And also we've been able to get around a couple cars in traffic, and the cars seem to lose a lot of grip in traffic. So trying to get the most mechanical grip that you can, so you're not dependent on the aero when you get behind somebody.
Here's the morning practice by the numbers, Larry Mack, and you see the Ford up top, but followed by 2 Toyotas. We heard from those guys, but also fast Matt Kenseth and Tony Stewart.
But I think that was a big question coming here. Could Toyota keep the speed and get these cars driving good like the speed they had at Daytona? And looks like they're looking pretty good shape.
Also in the top 10, the Hendrick teammates Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt Jr. And Larry Mack, normally we say that you are the hardest working man at the racetrack. But today, it was Dale Earnhardt Jr., man. He was out there turning laps.
I mean, in the morning session, if the track was open, he was out there. He ran almost 70 laps with just one of his race cars. Again, I think they're just trying to work, trying to learn things, and get that car driving good on these long runs that we'll have to deal with when we get here to race.
All right, we'll see how that work pays off shortly, but now let's take a look at the afternoon session. And when you look at some of the fast guys here, there is a common theme going on, and it is the Dodges that were very fast this afternoon, Larry Mack.
Well, I know it's the car tomorrow, not the old car, but it looks like finally Kenny Francis, Casey Kane in this 9 car, they're getting the field back to Casey Kane that he had when he won 6 races back in 2006.
A little later on in the show, we're going to hear from Ryan Newman, but he was again one of the Dodges that was looking a lot better this afternoon.
And remember the crew chief change. Roy McCauley, that he won so many Busch races back with him. Looks like those guys are complimenting each other.
And yet another Ray Evernham Dodge, a Gillette Evernham Dodge, Patrick Carpentier in the number 10. He was looking good also.
He wasn't looking too good off turn 4, got pretty good, pretty loose, but Casey King got in the race car, didn't run that much faster than Patrick, but told those guys what they needed to do to get that car driving better for Patrick.
Now, Larry, these guys are in somewhat of a box with this car of tomorrow. We talked about it a lot at Daytona, but you saw a lot of work going on today up underneath the front end of these cars of tomorrow.
Well, as I talked about in yesterday's Tech Talk, yeah, you know, you don't work much on the aero, but you can certainly sling a lot of spring shocks and sway bars, but you can only do that so much. What I saw today, and we've seen this some at testing before, JR, but there's almost not an organization or team that was not working with the front end geometry, spindle height, spindle types of different packages, A-frames. I mean, it was going on constantly in that garage area, but they're just trying to give that driver a more positive feel at the front end of these car tomorrows around this fast mile-and-a-half racetrack.
And it's all in the learning process with this new car.
It's a work in progress.
A work in progress. And again, as we always say, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. These are some of the best mechanics in the world, and they will figure out a way to get this race car handling good. And boy, it looks fast along the way. Folks, stick with us. There is still plenty more to come on Preseason Thunder. Tires, teammates, and times. Lots going on here in Las Vegas. Stick around. Coming up, we'll get the latest from Bob Dillner as he works the garage.
Gear and the NASCAR.com Superstore has you covered with the largest selection of officially licensed NASCAR driver gear for 2008. Be the first to own a number 88 Dale Earnhardt Jr. jacket, a Casey Kane number 9 Budweiser t-shirt, or the new NASCAR Sprint Cup Series hats. The Superstore has everything you need to support your favorite drivers. Log on and check out the all-new collection of 2008 season products, only at the NASCAR.com Superstore.
NASCAR.com, your home for everything NASCAR.
NASCAR Preseason Thunder is brought to you by DirecTV. Now get over 85 of the best channels in HD and more coming throughout the year.
One big difference between this test session and the one at Daytona a few weeks ago is the fact that everybody is here together. They're not split up into two groups. Tonight, Bob Dillner tells us about togetherness here at Las Vegas.
There is a lot of communication, a lot of work together, and that is a lot of fun and really helpful for all the teams, drivers, and everybody involved. I think it's more important in the most we're learning right now is about Junior, and Junior's learning about us, and that's been great. I mean, he's been very helpful. There's been some things with his driving style and car setup that we've applied and used. So it's all in all, it's been a great test.
I think it's helped a lot. I mean, that's one thing we tried to do this winter is make all of our cars just alike. I mean, Casey just got out the 9 and got in Patrick's car just to kind of see what's going on. So all the data we can collect as one team is going to help us. So we're very happy the way our cars are driving. Our guys did a lot of homework this winter to play catch up, and we feel like we've made some big gains.
That's one of the strengths at Roush Fenway is just having so many teams that can, that share information well. And it's good. It's good to be a part of this row over here. We're not letting anybody else come. Well, we did let Harvick in that end over there just because we like him, but nothing but Ford Fusions down here for us.
As Carl noted, the RCR bunch is broken up in the Vegas garage area, but it was a broken right front suspension piece that busted the morning practice session for Jeff Burton.
We had a mechanical problem. We know what happened, and it's unfortunate. We don't, we don't have a big allotment of cars right now, and it kind of sets us back for being able to do the things we want to do for the next 3 days. But it is what it is, and we'll have to deal with it.
At the Vegas test last year, a rash of incidents were caused by blistered tires. So when we came back for the race, a harder tire compound gave drivers fits. So this year, Goodyear came back with a softer left side and right side tire. Casey Kane was one of those drivers who was very critical of the tires last year.
As of right now, it's so much different because when we came back for the race, it was hotter. We tested, it was 30, 40 degrees out. The cars were super fast, so they made a harder tire. We come back for the race, and the track's so hot, and the tires are harder, and you couldn't get any grip. You couldn't race side by side. You couldn't do anything. So, yeah, that was disappointing. This year, everything's good, but it's pretty cold again. So, I think the tires feel good. It's a nice compound. As long as when we come back there's some heat, it'll slow the cars down, and I think we'll see no problems. I think it'll be good.
Well, the tires are a little bit slick, at the get-go, but it's not anything like what we had last year where it was, it was treacherous for the first 5 or 10 laps or whatever. But now, you can pull out with a full tank of fuel and sticker tires, and you can't run quite as quick maybe as you can once the fuel, burns off a little bit and the tires are really consistent. But tires seem to be really good, and we haven't seen any problems out of tires.
And Bob, you know, it's kind of refreshing to come to a test and have everybody not talking about tires and nothing else.
Yeah, it definitely is. And, you know, we have to understand what Goodyear did here is they brought a different compound tire, like we said in that piece, but the left sides are significantly softer than last year's. The right side's just a little bit softer, but we did see a couple of issues here today. And one of those issues was with the 48 car. Jimmy Johnson told me they actually blistered a right front tire, but with the high CG in these COT machines, we're going to see that on the right front of the car. And, you know, this racetrack is very interesting, too, as we see Jimmy Johnson go around the racetrack. This neon garage here just minutes ago, I was looking through the windows here and looking at the last-minute preparations for all these teams, and I just saw a big conglomerate of people around the 18 car. Well, apparently, I saw a right side tire from Kyle Busch's machine also blistered, and the entire Gibbs bunch was looking at that.
And I think a couple of things here, guys. You know, they're trying to run around a 1.5-mile racetrack at over 180 miles per hour average. The loads in the corner, they have to be so significant, and I think these guys are going to have to be so careful and just not get really aggressive with air pressure or camber. The other thing that's going to help this year versus last year, the racetrack has another full year on it. It's not that real grippy brand new asphalt that we had a year ago.
So maybe we shouldn't say there's not any tire talk so quickly. There could be before
As
all
we
said and
say, there's not bad tires. Sometimes we just do bad things to them.
Exactly. All right, well, there's no question. This is a very fast racetrack right now. The cars look like they're really moving, getting into the corners, and that will be the case when we come back here to race. Folks, stick around. Much more to come on this edition of Preseason Thunder. No matter how good or how bad the car, somehow, season after season, Ryan Newman got a pole. Coming up, we'll talk to Ryan about finding a little race luck.
Star power, special effects, unexpected thrills, and the world's greatest chase scenes. It's the 2008 West Coast premiere of NASCAR and the car of tomorrow at California Speedway. The Auto Club 500 NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, Sunday, February 24th. For tickets, call 800-944-RACE or visit racetickets.com.
You have to go back to the second Loudon race in 2005 to find the last time that Ryan Newman visited Victory Lane. And although the team has been winless for the last 2 seasons, they still have been coming very close. In fact, they finished second 3 times last year. Today, Bob Dillner spoke with Ryan Newman about making it back to Victory Lane.
At the end of last year, the Rocket Man exploded. 4 top 5s in the last 7 races for Ryan Newman. So the big question is, will that momentum carry over to this year, Ryan?
I hope it does. The Alto Dodges had some really good tests in the offseason here, and I think that definitely will lead to carrying that momentum over. But we had a great ending into the year in reference to the top 5s, like you said, and it's just something to build on, keep working on that. And we didn't get to Victory Lane, so we got some work to do, but look forward to 2008 for sure.
The promising thing, I'm sure, is the good runs with the COT machine, the new car here in NASCAR, and of course we're running that car all year long. And you've been testing that a little bit in the beginning part of this year. How have things been going for you there?
They were good. Our Daytona test was good. We had tested at Memphis and Nashville. Those tests were well, and it's been good for us. We've had feel like a good grasp on the car itself as far as comparing it to the old car, and it is the car now, so that's what you have to work with, and there's no excuses.
Vegas here, been a little bit tricky trying to get the balance of the race car. How do you perfect that?
Well, it's just tough. I mean, it's a fast track right now. It is, and it's actually got a little bit of bumps in it, so it makes it on edge sometimes. But the test is going well for us, and we look forward to coming back here for sure.
You know, obviously 2 seasons without a victory here in Nextel Cup, now Sprint Cup competition. So the main goal, getting back into Victory Lane?
Absolutely. I mean, the main goal is to get in Victory Lane on a weekly basis, but the main goal is to win the championship, and to do that first you have to get in the chase. We've been close the last couple of years, specifically last year, and we need to make that happen in 2008.
Ryan Newman looking pretty good at the end of last year. He's got 12 victories in NASCAR's top series, looking for number 13 in the Daytona 500.
Will Newman find better luck in 2008? He finished 2007 13th in points. Still no wins, but the silver lining, those 5 pole positions. And Larry Mack, some more numbers on Ryan Newman. 8 years in Cup competition, including 12 wins. And one season where he was just, seemed like him and Matt Borland together, they were an unstoppable combination. They were winning everything. But once a guy stops winning like that, I mean, he doesn't forget how to drive. The team doesn't forget how to win. It's just something that has to come back together.
Well, and I think this is the evolution of the 12 team that I've seen. Yeah, when Matt Borland and Ryan Newman came on the scene in 2002, and you look at 2002, 3, and 4, I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, these guys are going to be multiple winners every year. They obviously had a fast race car when you look at the polls, but then things started changing. You know, the Intrepid, they went to a new nose, and they were searching old nose, new nose, old nose, new nose. Goodyear made some changes in the tire. They just couldn't get their arms around, and it seemed like that Ryan and Matt just kind of went separate from each other. And then last year, the 2 different cars with the old car, the car tomorrow, Mike Nelson in there, they just never could get their arms around. But I think the good thing is we've got the one car. They built that momentum the end of last year, and Roy McCauley, I talked about him earlier, is his crew chief this year, and Roy was with Ryan when he was so solid and won all those races in the Busch Series. So I think they just really complement each other, which we've been talking a lot about.
And Larry, you can tell us firsthand, it's that driver-crew chief chemistry that means so much out on the racetrack on Sunday or Saturday night.
You get that right, the rest will follow around it, I guarantee you.
All right, well, folks, we are getting closer and closer to Speed Weeks and Daytona, and part of Speed Weeks is the Gatorade Duel. It's a Valentine's Day that all race fans will love, and some drivers may hate. The Gatorade Duel at Daytona can be seen live exclusively on Speed. NASCAR on Speed. Be there and be back with us in Vegas here in just a few minutes.
Premiere Week on Speed. Discover a new high and low. Cross the line in super machines. Meet a new breed of high school hero. Plus, an all-new season of your favorites.
I'm really excited.
Premiere Week begins February 18th.
Out here in Vegas, the odds makers have embraced NASCAR. In fact, there are all kinds of games you can play when it comes to NASCAR racing. You can bet on driver versus driver, where a driver will finish. And there's probably several hundred more things about NASCAR you can bet on out here at Vegas, because that simply never stops. But this time last year, you could bet that all the talk was about tires. Goodyear has brought a new tire combination, and no one's really talking about it that much. And in today's Tech Talk, Larry McReynolds tells us that's a good thing.
Today's Tech Talk is something about the 3,400-pound Sprint Cup car that ties it to the racetrack. The 4 Goodyear tires. Remember, that's the only thing that connects that race car to the racetrack to give feedback to the driver. Now, Goodyear can do a lot of things to change how the tire acts, how it performs, and the feel that it gives the driver. One thing is in the construction of the tire. And what that is the fabric and components in the tread, and especially in the sidewall area, to give it more or less compliance. The other thing is the compound of the tread, how soft or hard that compound is. Now, as a car goes around an oval racetrack, we know most of the load is on the right side tires, so the right side tire of the Sprint Cup car will always be a little harder than the left side. Now, what they've done with the Las Vegas tire this year versus last year, on the left side tires, they've changed the construction, but especially on the tread, on the compound, they've made it just a little softer. So the left side tire is gripping the racetrack a lot better and giving the driver a lot better feel. So the good news is this Las Vegas test comes to a close. We've not heard a lot about tires, and you know what? That is always a beautiful thing.
So, Larry, obviously when it comes to the tires, that when the drivers and the crew chiefs, the guys like that are talking, NASCAR and Goodyear is listening.
Well, there's no question, and Bob Dillner talked about it earlier in the show. You know, they were in a no-win situation last year. We came here, we tested, we had that brand new asphalt that just had a ton of grip. They brought a tire that had a fair amount of grip, and the end result was the tires were blistered. You can't race that way. That's when cars hit wall. They came back with a very conservative tire that was very hard, that had a light amount of tread on it so it wouldn't generate so much heat, and the cars were sliding all over the place. I have never envied Goodyear's position. They're in a no-win situation, especially with a brand new racing surface.
Now, is this just a Vegas thing, Larry Mack, or will we see this throughout the season?
I think everything they learned the end of last year, especially with the car tomorrow, the loads that these cars has, I think we're going to see a very small amount of tire problems in 2008. And when you look at the generation of tire that we have here on the left side, I talked about the construction change. A lot of that came from a tire test that Jeff Burton and Tony Stewart, the 20 and 31 team, did here, but a lot of
of it came from what they learned at a lot of the races with the car tomorrow, the end of last year.
And the safety factor there is also very good when that tire holds together much better. Well, it's hard to believe, folks, but just over a week from today, you better be there for DirecTV Speed Weeks as we launch Speed HD with 100 hours of coverage from Daytona. DirecTV Speed Weeks coverage begins February 7th, and the Daytona 500 is as big as it gets. And a few drivers over the years have made that Daytona 500 their first ever victory. 1994 was one of those races. Let's take a look back.
Last lap to decide it all. Sterling Marlin stays first. Ernie Irvan in second.
Can Ernie Irvan pass him on this last lap, this last turn?
Into turn 3. Sterling Marlin in front. Ernie Irvan closing ground. Here they come down the stretch for the final time. It is Sterling Marlin in the lead. Down to the inside comes the 28. Coming to the line. Sterling Marlin's going to win it. Ernie Irvan, who left the Morgan McClure ride to go with the 28 team of Robert Yates, is defeated by that team, and Sterling Marlin wins his first Winston Cup victory in the greatest race of them all.
Can you believe you're here?
No, not really. I'm going to pace myself.
The Daytona 500. It's the greatest story in racing, told in 200-lap chapters each February. Its cast of characters includes a Wonder Boy and the man himself. It's a story about underdogs, royalty, and family. Most of all, it's about knowing that should you be there, you'll be part of racing's greatest story forever. To guarantee your seats to the 50th running of the Daytona 500, call 1-800-PIT-SHOP or visit Daytona500.com.
Wouldn't it be nice if everything in life came with a worry-free guarantee? Well, at Rent-A-Center, everything does. With our worry-free guarantee, we'll match any competitor's price on brand new, brand-name merchandise. No credit hassles, delivery, setup, and service included. And you gotta love it or your money back. Rent-A-Center
is brought to you by DirecTV. Now get over 85 of the best channels in HD and more coming throughout the year.
Tickets for the Las Vegas Sprint Cup weekend are on sale now. Call 800-644-4444 or visit lvms.com to make it a weekend to remember. It's the 11th annual UAW Dodge 400 Sunday, March 2nd. Now let's take a look at some updated times as they run on the Speedway right now. Mark Martin leading the way, Casey Kane behind him. We have a few Toyotas up there as well as Fords and Chevys. Bob Dillner joins us once again. And Bob, it should not surprise us in any way, shape, or form that Chad Knaus and the number 4018, that they're on a different agenda than everybody else. Yeah, almost everybody else.
Almost everybody else. Most guys brought an A and a B car here to this particular test, and both of those cars for each team has been on the racetrack. But Chad Knaus told me, you know what, we're not going that route. We brought one car here and one car only. And you know what, we have another car in the trailer that we'll take to California later this week. So like Johnny said, no surprise that Chad Knaus on a different agenda.
And I have a philosophy there, and I was actually talking to Darrell Waltrip and Jeff Hammond on the phone this morning about that, and what I would call that is two things. It's called focused and confidence. They are confident in what they do, everything they do, and they're never afraid to get outside the box just a little bit, but obviously it paid off, especially last year.
Yeah, because Jimmy's won, 3 in a row here now, going for a 4-peat at this racetrack and a 3-peat on the championship. But back to this testing session, Larry, you made an observation earlier that the times are so close together up and down the speed chart.
It is. This morning, the top 41, now remember, some teams, drivers had multiple cars, 2 cars in there. The top 41 was only separated by 0.5 of a second. The other thing, Bob, is if you had 2 cars, it seemed like both of them were pretty equal in time. Wasn't one real fast or wasn't one real slow.
And that's exactly what happened to Tony Stewart here with his A and his B car. They were very, very close. But you got to remember, I think it's because of that box that we've been talking about. NASCAR has these teams in such a close box. I think that's why we're seeing these close times in testing.
What happens in Vegas normally stays here, but I think we'll move on to Fontana.
Yeah, because we're going to bring it back home to you guys as Preseason Thunder coverage continues on Speed. We got a wrap-up show tomorrow from Vegas, and then we'll join you from California on Thursday. Thanks for coming along for the ride, everybody.
Hey, I'm Steve Burns. He's Jeff Hammond.
And this is Preseason Thunder.
The most important preseason test in Vegas has made its impression.
And Denny Hamlin's going to talk about his impressions of his Toyota.
Find out who has a grip on the new car with just 18 days until the 50th running of the Daytona 500. Preseason Thunder clamors on right now.
Get out of here.
The test at Sin City is in the books, so now it's from Glitter Gulch, Las Vegas Motor Speedway, north of the Strip to the California Speedway. Hi, everybody. Thunder and lightning. Ka-chow. Enough silliness.
I like it.
Enough silliness. Super Bowl 42 this weekend in Phoenix. You're headed to California for that test, but let's focus on Vegas. What was the biggest headline you saw this week?
Well, a lot of guys were tearing up cars that they don't have in their stock, you might say, Steve. So I'm really worried about some of the guys being behind early in the season.
What about the improvement of A.J. Allmendinger in Red Bull Racing? The kid's got some confidence. A good test at Daytona, great test at Vegas.
Well, Steve, we've been talking a lot about confidence and attitude. Well, right now, I've got to believe that A.J. Allmendinger, at least from what I saw in Daytona and after this test at Las Vegas, he has definitely got the right attitude and he's on cloud nine.
Big improvement for them. Let's take a look at some of the highlights and the hot shoes from the test at that mile-and-a-half speedway, Jeff.
Right there, the guy that was the fastest overall, Juan Pablo Montoya, Rookie of the Year in 2007, looking to go back to victory lane again in 2008.
There the aforementioned A.J. Allmendinger is in the 84 car, over 185, almost 186 miles per hour.
Hey, he's back. Casey Kane has been fast in the past, but look at him right now, new Budweiser sponsorship, back up there, third quick. How about his teammate right here, Elliott Sadler, looking strong, our buddy from trackside.
Looks like they may have figured some things out at the end of 2007. Two-time and defending Sprint Cup champion.
Give me 10.
Jimmy Johnson, quick, 18th overall, Dale Earnhardt Jr. as he debuts with Hendrick Motorsports. Tony Stewart, 10th in his Toyota.
Looking strong again. I'm telling you right now, these guys are kind of laying in the weeds. You better watch out for them.
Speaking of laying in the weeds, Kyle Busch, another Joe Gibbs racing driver. As we look at the top 10 combined speeds, any surprises there you see, Jeff?
What I'm seeing right now, when we were at Daytona, Dodges were struggling. They get to Las Vegas, all of a sudden they found some muscle. A lot of Dodges up here in this top 10, Steve.
Jeff, Carl Edwards, the only Ford in the top 10 for Roush Fenway. Some notable drivers. Take a look at Jeff Gordon, down there 22nd. I don't think he's probably too concerned. But you look further down the list, Jeff, you have noted Kurt Busch and Sam Hornish, teammates at Penske South.
Hey, but more importantly, it has to be the fact that Sam Hornish has got all of Kurt Busch's last year points, and right now Kurt is going to have to qualify his way in or use a past champions provisional. Not very good for these two Penske teammates.
I have an idea. Let's hear from the wheelmen.
Well, I think Chad's learning a lot about the car. It's our first big track test for the car tomorrow for us. I've learned a lot about it and how it feels, how it drives, how it slides around that I didn't feel or notice on the smaller tracks. So it's been a learning curve for both of us. We're still looking for a little speed right now with the car, but it's our second day really working with it, and we're learning a lot.
Typical Vegas for me, not too good. We went through our typical struggles here. We've never really had any luck here with this pavement and these tires. We just can't ever get the car to turn. So we fought we were okay yesterday for a little bit. The track got tighter, we got tighter, and we've never been able to really fix it. So, but we learned a lot of stuff that didn't work that we cross off our list.
Everything's been going great. We've got a great foundation built over here with the Joe Gibbs Racing deal, and a lot of fun. And the guys have been really working hard, and we've really got a strong basis for what we've got going on. So it's been exciting, and it's been fun, and hopefully we can carry this off-season testing where we've been fast into the regular season.
Jeff Hammond, I like the idea that we're going to test. Logistically, it makes sense to go from Vegas to California. The teams will stay out there. But why this much testing right before our Super Bowl, the Daytona 500?
Well, Steve, realize we've got this car that we have not run at these racetracks like California, Daytona, and Las Vegas. So these guys need this testing. It's very important to them. And they're trying to build that library of information. A lot of things I think Jimmy Johnson brought out. I didn't feel this on the slower tracks. I didn't feel this at Phoenix. So they're learning. The learning curve is very important. And being the fact these races are at the early part of the season, NASCAR and everybody need a little bit of a glimpse of what to expect.
And let's not forget, Jeff, that the initial rollout plan was it wasn't until 2009 that all the new cars would be ramped in, but they're here now.
I'm telling you right now, it's the greatest thing I think NASCAR has done since they decided to go to this new car, because it needs to be, fine-tuned. We're only going to get good racing if we get enough seat time and testing. Now, it's tough on the teams. It was tough on them last year when they tried to run both cars. It's going to be tough again this year, early part of the season, but this is very much a needed test session.
Hey, lots more headed your way here on Preseason Thunder. Still to come on Preseason Thunder, Bob Dylan reports on what the teams really learned at Vegas, and Denny Hamlin speaks about his new steed in the JGR stable. Preseason Thunder will be right back.
NASCAR Preseason Thunder is brought to you by DirecTV. Now get over 85 of the best channels in HD and more coming throughout the year.
New gear and the NASCAR.com Superstore has you covered with the largest selection of officially licensed NASCAR driver gear for 2008. Be the first to own a number 88 Dale Earnhardt Jr. jacket, a Casey Kane number 9 Budweiser t-shirt, or the new NASCAR Sprint Cup Series hats. The Superstore has everything you need to support your favorite drivers. Log on and check out the all-new collection of 2008 season products only at the NASCAR.com Superstore.
NASCAR.com, your home for everything NASCAR.
Tickets for the Las Vegas Sprint Cup weekend are on sale now. Call 800-644-4444 or visit www.lvms.com to make it a weekend to remember. It's the 11th annual UAW Dodge 400 Sunday, March 2nd. Welcome back. Bob Dillner brings us this week's Interstate Batteries Tested Trusted Update from Las Vegas.
For the teams at this Vegas test, it was sort of like COT 101. This was the first official time that all the teams were on a 1.5 mile track together. Now for some, they left a little banged up, battered and bruised, like Michael Waltrip and Tony Stewart, who both wrecked late in the day on Tuesday. But for most, they left with a lot of knowledge. And that's a pretty good thing, because consider this. We were at Daytona earlier this month, and Daytona is a rare breed because there are only 2 restrictor plate tracks on the Cup schedule. But 1.5 mile speedways make up 33% of the Cup schedule. And now we go from Vegas to California, a fast 2-mile facility that is the sister track of Michigan Speedway. And a lot of the drivers told me, they said, hey, if you were fast here in Vegas, you're probably going to be fast at California as well. But if you were slow here in Vegas, you'll be slow there too.
This Interstate Batteries Tested Trusted Update has been brought to you by Interstate Batteries. For a dealer near you, visit interstatebatteries.com. Interstate Batteries, every battery for every need.
Denny Hamlin was the big surprise in 2006, winning twice in his rookie season. In 2007, he picked up another win. Both years, Hamlin made the chase, but Denny Hamlin a little bit disappointed about the way last season ended. He's with Bob.
Vegas is always a fun place to come to, but here in this garage area, it's back to business, especially for this guy, Denny Hamlin. You got your 2 other teammates here. How are things going so far?
On the Gibbs side, everything's been good. The switch to Toyota has been fairly easy for us, and looks like on-track performance is there definitely. So very excited about this year.
All right, and we got, of course, coming up the California test, and a lot of people say, some things will relate, some things won't. So how important is this California test coming up?
It's going to be very important. Here we're going to kind of get a basis for what we've got at Atlanta and Texas and those tracks that's got a little bit more bank to them. The next one we're going to go to is going to help us places like Michigan and Pocono and those racetracks. So I think it's going to be very key to have your team and all working very well over these next 2 or 3 days to get a good basis, because we're not going to be able to test all these racetracks.
And finally, at the end of last year, I got to talk to you a bunch, and I know you were a little disappointed with the outcome of how things worked last year. So how is it going to be different, and how are you going to make it different this year, Dan?
We had such a strong run the first half of last season, contending for a lot of race wins, that we kind of peaked a little bit too early. We were trying to strive for a little bit more in the chase and say, we should have 5 wins, so let's go out there and get them. And that's just not the mentality you can have here in the Cup Series and be a successful Cup contender. So I think I learned a little bit after the first year that, maybe I needed to step it up a little bit in the chase, but I think kind of we just went a little bit too far.
Speaking of wins, he's got 3 in his career in NASCAR's top series, but a lot of people think he'll get 3 or more this season.
Thank you, Bob Dillner. Jeff, I've really been impressed with how quickly the Joe Gibbs teams have made the transition from Chevrolet to Toyota.
Well, the key thing has to be the car itself. I mean, the fact that they already had an understanding of the new car. I mean, everything that was going on there was just a matter of changing the body components. The chassis stayed the same. Big plus there. But the engine department has really stepped it up. I mean, I've heard a lot of people saying that all of a sudden they brought some new ideas to the table for Toyota. It has already shown at places like Daytona, and more importantly, at a place like Las Vegas, we see that they're fast. They're very consistent, and that's something they were lacking last year. The cars did not have the bottom end torque they needed to go with the horsepower range that these engines produce. But early on, definitely Kyle Busch, Tony Stewart, David Rudman, hey, they're a factor.
Jeff, I remember at the press conference last year when Joe Gibbs Racing announced they were making the switch, they had a cast of thousands, and everybody was looking at Mark Cronquist, the head engine builder. Do you feel like that reliability, you're saying you like the horsepower,
right?
Is reliability going to be an issue in that camp?
I really think it's going to be okay. They may make some mistakes early on, but you got to also understand that last year Toyota had that learning curve. They had a pretty good idea of what the engine needed. They worked on it, and I think right now with the guidance of Joe Gibbs and all the people that work at that operation, they probably opened their eyes to a couple other areas that they should be better at.
Our big boss, David Hill, likes to say a rising tide lifts all ships.
Right.
Is that going to be true in the case, for example, of A.J. Allmendinger, Team Red Bull? Are they helping the other Toyota teams?
I think it's all the way across the board. Knowing how Toyota likes to do their business, I think you've seen a huge improvement all the way across the board. So that tells me that the information is filtering down like it should. A.J. Allmendinger, Brian Vickers, Michael Waltrip, all these teams are definitely better than they were a year ago, better prepared, and I really think that they're going to be a force. The key thing is, to me, Steve, is who's going to win the first race.
You mean in the Toyota camp?
In the Toyota camp.
Do you think all 3 Gibbs teams make the chase?
I think they've got an excellent chance of doing that. I really do. I think they're very solid. Kurt Busch and Kyle Busch has already shown he is fast. I think the fact that Denny Hamlin has matured in the last couple of years as far as chase is concerned, he understands what it's going to take, and we know that Tony Stewart has all the experience along with Greg Spidelli to get there.
Good information, but I'm waiting for you to mature as well.
Never.
Up next, the rookie class had trouble coming to grips with their new machines. And later, we talk to the drivers about tomorrow's test at the California Speedway. Preseason Thunder rolls on right after this.
High drama. Star power. Special effects. Unexpected thrills. And the world's greatest chase scenes. It's the 2008 West Coast premiere of NASCAR and the Car of Tomorrow at California Speedway. The Auto Club 500 NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, Sunday, February 24th. For tickets, call 800-944-RACE or visit racetickets.com.
Some people go to Europe on vacation to find themselves. I went to Wyoming. To kind of set me on the foot where I wanted to go forward. Translated what I saw in my head and I put it down on the car. It's like going to school for a hobby. I learned a lot, pushed my hobby to a different limit. Making my hands do what I wanted it to do never gets boring. My name is Chris, and my school is Biotech.
Wake up your whiskers with Electric Shave. Electric Shave! Stands up whiskers for an up to 52% closer shave.
Man, that was close.
Electric Shave. Blade close. Electric smooth.
When the heat is on, the pain is gone.
Introducing Heat Therapy from Icy Hot. Better than a heating pad, new Heat Therapy gives you up to 8 hours of muscle-relaxing, pain-relieving heat that goes where you go. New Icy Hot Heat Therapy.
When the heat is on, pain is gone.
In February 2009, TV stations will broadcast exclusively in digital. Every TV that's hooked up to cable will still work just fine. If you get TV through an antenna, you can still keep your sets working. Just call 888-DTV-2009 to learn about a government coupon program for converter boxes. Or visit dtvtransition.org.
Oh, and tell the zombies they're blocked too.
There was a lot of talk during the offseason how Sprint Cup teams would prepare for back-to-back tests on the West Coast at Las Vegas and Fontana, and then back-to-back races at those two racetracks after the Daytona 500. Now, in today's Tech Talk, I'm going to tell you what a lot of the crew chiefs told me about the preparation for that. The good news is the two tracks are very similar, only a half-mile difference in distance, and of course the car tomorrow, aero-wise, chassis-wise, it can't be that much different anyhow. What teams are doing at the Las Vegas test in the next 2 days at Fontana, they will be testing the same two cars at both of those tests. And as we look ahead toward the two races back-to-back, what they're going to do from the test results, probably choose one of the cars to be the primary for Fontana and one of the cars to be the primary for Las Vegas. And then what they'll do is create one backup car for both of those races. So as soon as the Fontana race is over, trucks will be coming out to swap the primary cars out, and they'll move on up the road to Las Vegas to run that 400-mile event.
And Larry, as a former crew chief, I can tell you, even sometimes during testing, it can be dangerous, as we saw at Las Vegas.
And Jeff, you know, we talked about the logistics, how it makes sense. You see guys hitting the wall there pretty hard, and that can actually hinder the test in California.
It most certainly can, because all of a sudden, for example, Sam Hornish is his primary car probably for Vegas, and he was thinking, well, let me just do something there in California. Same for Dario Franchitti. All of a sudden, they lose that car. Now they got to be careful. They can't afford to go out there and kind of lay it up on the edge, because if they wreck again, all of a sudden that testing is going to get away from them. One of the guys that was beneficial in being able to save the car was Jacques Villeneuve. He was able to keep the 27 car off the wall, which is a very big plus for this entire team.
Others not as fortunate. Watch this. Oh, David Reagan.
Hard hit.
Hard hit. And again, Jeff, let's underscore the point that as we see
Regan Smith
Regan
right there
Smith
in
go
01.
around, this could, in fact, because now they only have one race car to go to California here in the next day or so, they may not be able to run the ragged edge in that test.
They won't be able to, Steve. I can guarantee you that right now. You see right there Jeff Burton, he had some problems, had a suspension part break, got himself into the wall. So it happened to the veterans, happened to rookies. This kind of testing, when you're doing all the things that these teams are doing during these test sessions, you're on that ragged edge, and if it gets away from you, you crash the car. The other thing we haven't really, I guess, overemphasized, you can't run back to the shop and have another car back there the next day, 3,000 miles away.
The other thing I think we need to point out is this isn't like a Martinsville or Richmond test. We're going to two very high-speed racetracks.
Almost 187 miles an hour is the fastest lap turned at Las Vegas. So when you get into the wall, it's not just a little matter of a brush, oh, we'll beat the fenders back off of it and keep on going like a Martinsville, maybe a Richmond. When they hit the wall here, as we saw in Dario Franchitti's wreck, he had heavy damage to it, as well as with the David Reagan's car. These cars were destroyed.
What year was your first Daytona 500?
1974.
You're such a young man, too. Here's one of the greatest Daytona 500 memories of all time, 1976.
I was there.
The top two all-time winners in a classic showdown. The final lap of this $343,000 event. Petty has the Dodge in front, but now the persistent Pearson begins to reel Petty in. Down the long back chute, David Pearson once again claims the lead as he puts the hammer down. Both cars wound over their limits, tack needles in the red, two flying hand grenades, and a frantic run for a checkered flag. At turn 4, the volcano erupts. Petty's Dodge slithering, sliding to a halt just a scant few feet from the checkered flag. He's unable to restart the engine. Pearson's car still running as he brings the crippled Mercury through the dust and across the finish line for the most spectacular win in stock car history.
NASCAR on speed, getting primed for NASCAR 08. From the garage to the studio.
We got a lot of unknowns coming at us.
On NASCAR Preseason Thunder. Continues tomorrow, 7 Eastern, 8 Pacific.
Speed HD with 100 hours of coverage from Daytona. Speed is everywhere, on and off the track, as teams scramble to make the field for the Daytona 500. DirecTV Speed Week's coverage begins February 7th, 5 Eastern. NASCAR on Speed. be there. Well, as we said earlier, the teams are in California right now, getting ready to test on that 2-mile speedway. Let's hear what the teams say about that racetrack in particular.
I'd be surprised if people ran well here and then went there and ran poorly. And by the way, if you ran poorly here, I'd be surprised if you go there and run well. It's one of the problems of having tests back-to-back is that you don't really have time to respond to issues that you have because everything you have is here.
This feels like Charlotte. I mean, you go in the corner, your heart's pounding, tons of side load on the car. And then you go to California, it's going to be a little bit more like a dry, slick dirt track. You know, it's just getting the thing to grip all the way around that corner.
I think between the two, it's probably close to 50% of the races. So it's just another track, another good track. It's flatter. You can learn a lot there with keeping these cars, the front ends down and stuff. That's kind of the key to these things, and it's been tough to figure out.
We're going to try to apply some of the stuff that we learned here and see how it works. If it does, obviously we'll go with it. But our feeling is that we'll have to do some pretty big different things to make it work in California.
We worked on a lot of stuff today with bump stops and stuff on the front end, and it helped out the car quite a bit. But I think we still got quite a bit of work to do to catch some of those guys out there. But I felt like we learned more today than we did 2 days at Vegas and yesterday. So we had a good day today.
Yeah, all of the Roush Fenway cars were pretty good, and you know, our engineering department has really stepped it up. And with the car tomorrow, with the simulation program, they just you know, you can come and unload the tracks, and the cars drive pretty good. So I think Carl probably had the best car of our group, but all 5 cars were fast.
I think we learned a lot. You know, the key is going back and applying what we learned so we can come back and be a touch better. But pretty happy with it. You know, I think the track's going to get slick and it's going to get really difficult. But that's what's fun. I mean, I hope it gets like that. As long as it's, you know, it's difficult for everybody, not just me, it'll be good.
Now, folks, you can't read too much into one test session, but Jeff Hammond, if you go back to last season, and remember, Jack Roush himself came out and said, we did not research this car tomorrow properly. We're going back to the drawing board. And at least in speeds last night and this morning at this racetrack, it looks as if it's paid off.
It's definitely gotten better for them guys. You know, and a year's difference makes a tremendous amount when you come to the track. But the big thing is the drivers seem like they're confident, and that's what you're looking for. Jeff Burton summed it up, I think, the best. You want to take the information that you've accumulated over the last few days at not only Las Vegas but here at California Speedway and go back and apply it so when you get back to this racetrack, you can make this car hook up and run around here the way you really want it to. That's going to be the important part, is being able to get there faster when you get back here. The track's going to change again, JR, before we get back.
And one thing that changed a lot this afternoon as we got into this current session that's going on right now is the sun went away and a lot of teams did as well. Let's take a look at some of the fast cars in this afternoon session, and you'll see a common theme here as well, and that theme is Hendrick Motorsports.
Hey, they're back. Are you surprised? I mean,
No.
again, this guy sat on the pole here in the spring, ran second to Matt Kenseth, but he's always been a good, fierce competitor when it comes to this racetrack.
All right, another guy up on the speed chart, the number 48, Jimmy Johnson. Now, again, most of the cars had pulled out at this point, so again, we can't put too much into these speeds, but when you look at the top of this chart, it was Hendrick dominated.
Hendrick dominated, but the key thing is watching this 48 car. Remember, he said his car didn't drive with a blank yesterday, so maybe they've gotten it better today. But this guy here, Pat Tryson told me, Kurt Busch, they have definitely liked this racetrack over Las Vegas.
Casey Mears, another Hendrick Motorsports car, still out on the racetrack as we speak right now, as is Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the number 88. And those guys continue to work and continue to turn laps out west here. And, Jeff, if you look up and down the garage area, you might think to yourself, hey, these guys who were first, second, and in the chase last year, they might be the ones you expect to pull out, leave early, and head home. But they're the ones who are here to the bitter end.
And you know why, JR? Because of the fact they want to be there at the bitter end, you might say. At the end of that season, they realize the competition is closed up on them. They've got to stay here and work and work and work to get their cars better because the tires are a little bit different from the year ago. Plus, the competition itself has finally closed that gap as far as Hendrick is concerned.
So the work continues out here on the racetrack as Jimmy Johnson passes right behind us. They are still out there, and they clearly have made improvements in their lap time. So, folks, stick around. Still much more to come from California as the sun starts to set behind the clouds and the track cools down. Jeff Gordon hasn't won a championship since 2001, so was last year a missed opportunity? Coming up, Jeff looks at what could have been, plus all the latest from the garage. Stick around. We'll be back.
The results are